I love talking with passionate business owners. Their enthusiasm is irresistible. Their knowledge is invaluable. And their wisdom holds the keys to transforming your passion into a successful business. As a marketing strategist, I help people around the world. I help them innovate and grow their business. I'm Jay Hamilton Roth, and this is Business with Passion. Today's episode features the making of the Pacific Sun, the second longest running alternative weekly in the United States. With newspaper publishing in serious decline, how does the Pacific Sun continue to create award-winning, free issues week after week? Let's hear from the passionate people that make it happen.
The Pacific Sun started in 1963. We were actually located in Stinson Beach in a small room in the back of the Stinson Market, right there on Highway 1. And it was run by a mom and pop family. They had like 11 kids. They were called the Gromans. And it was really sort of a fishing news weekly. They covered a lot of grisly Highway 1 accidents with photos, and sadly a lot of drownings in the surf, and the catch of the day type stuff. It was purchased in 1966 by a man named Steve McNamara, who had been an editor at the Examiner, and it was a Marin County guy, and he envisioned turning the paper into something similar to the Village Voice. The Village Voice was, I guess, the first alternative newspaper in the world, and the Pacific Sun was second. The idea behind alternative newspapers was simply to cover more cultural type stories than the dailies would do. They wanted fantastic writing. They wanted passionate, in-depth analysis of various issues. It was quite a leap what the Village Voice did, and Steve McNamara wanted to turn the same thing into Marin, a community that was going into a lot of transition at the time as well, mostly through, I guess, the counterculture that was coming across from San Francisco and the new arts and music scene that was making its way into the county through Janis Joplin, the Grateful Dead, and other residents of the county that were on the national scene at the time. And the environmental battles became sort of the line in the sand that the Pacific Sun wanted to stand behind. And they won a lot of them. There were people that wanted to develop the Marin Headlands into Marincello, a metropolis on the sea of huge developments, towering skyscrapers, and five-star hotels. And the community and environmentalists from the 1960s and into the 70s really put a stop to that. They wanted to build a highway from Sausalito, cutting all the way through the county, a superhighway, and they won that battle as well. I can't think of a lot of battles that they lost, and I'm thankful for them for putting up a fight. I try to be at least 4 weeks ahead of knowing what's going to be in every issue. A lot of it's easy. We have a theater column reviewing some local shows every other week. I don't have to think about it. We have regular film reviews, we have regular music coverage. Those aren't something I have to spend a lot of time thinking about. It tends to be the larger features, the late-breaking news, the weekly and monthly developments and ongoing coverage of the water district, city councils, just sort of different players in the community, whether they might be entertainers or in the political scenes. We keep tabs on that as closely as we can. Now that the internet is such a huge deal, we operate in many ways almost as a daily, in that if there's late-breaking news, we tend to know about it very quickly. A lot of our contributors have their fingers on the pulse of these things, and either they let us know or we get news feeds with press releases. Twitter has gotten us a few stories just in its infancy. And while we're in print every Thursday we hit the racks, PacificSun.com is really operating as a daily newspaper, online newspaper.
Well, I'll tell you, I've had this passion since I was 5. I started out life as a journalist. Wrote my first story when I was 5. My mother still has it. And when I was about that age, my parents took me by the local daily newspaper, the Beacon News in Aurora, Illinois, and I looked up and I said, I'm going to work there one day. And I did. I ended up and started out in the newsroom, worked my way up, became features editor, which I loved. That's probably my favorite position. Then got into the business side when I got my MBA. And my passion is journalism. I feel that there's a strong need for journalism in this society, in this world. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I got into the business side, so I could further protect that journalism, because it is so key to society. Now, do I miss the newsroom? Absolutely, absolutely. And I miss I was going to say I miss the deadline, the adrenaline rush. And I think anybody that works at a newspaper in any position needs to be able to have that adrenaline rush when something comes up, because news business is all about pressure, all about deadlines, all about, drop and run. A publisher is kind of the jack of all trades at a newspaper, completely responsible for everything, from what goes in the paper to the photographs to how the newspaper is funded, how it is delivered, everything, absolutely everything. So from the time I awake in the morning, I have something on my mind. And I think that's one of the reasons why I love this position, is because of the diversity. And, I've learned so much just from being in this position, because, like I said, it's sales, production, circulation, editorial, and it's everything all at once.
My artistic background started with doing fanzines when I was a late teens. I actually have a BA in psychology. I went to school. I wanted to work with runaway kids and do that kind of stuff. But I did so much volunteer work and whatnot that I decided everyone's crazy, and I didn't really want to be involved in that anymore. And so I actually got an internship at the Santa Barbara Independent, which is where I went to school at UCSB. And I would do that for a few hours a week, and that was back in the days of Paste Up, and where you'd cut a little letter. If there was a word spelled wrong, you had to cut a little letter and stick it down. Back before we had scanners, it's funny. It's really crazy how things have changed in the last 10 or 15 years. It kind of blows my mind. But I got an internship and just fell in love with it. I was at the right place at the right time. Somebody quit. It was Christmas. I got hired. I remember I made $6.50 an hour and learned how to use a computer program called Ready, Set, Go on the computer. And then I've taken tons of classes, adult ed, City College, BAVAC, taken a lot of classes at BAVAC. So I've learned down and dirty like that. My job each week is to coordinate all the artwork for the paper, for the news stories, for the cover, working with freelance photographers and artists, and putting together the editorial and the stories, everything, so everything's all packaged up nicely. At the same time, I'm overseeing all the ads that are going into the papers, working with the ad trafficker and my designers to get all the ads made. My favorite thing is that we call it camera readies, which are actually camera unready, because more and more people are getting computers, and everyone gets excited. They want to make their own ad, but they do it in Publisher, on the PC, in Microsoft Word, all these crazy things that aren't really camera ready. So it's a lot of troubleshooting.
I grew up in Novato, and I went to Novato High School, so I'm a local guy, which helps me in this job because I know a little bit of the ins and outs of the county. I went to San Francisco State, though. I was an English Lit major. I got my bachelor's in English Lit. Then I went and got my master's, also from San Francisco State, in film. And it was sort of more through the film that I came to journalism. I had never taken a journalism class in my life. After graduating with a film degree, people kept asking me, so what are you going to do with that? I kept thinking, my gosh, what do you do with this? Do you move to LA? I don't want to move to LA. So I began writing on film and sending it to a few newspapers. And the Marin IJ picked me up as a columnist. And then they hired me as a features writer, specializing in film and arts. And eventually they made me a reporter. And that invariably sort of led to the Pacific Sun, which is very entertainment-oriented and in-depth writing, longer features, covering the cultures and the lifestyles of Marin. And luckily, 4.5 years ago, there was an opening when the Sun's previous editor, Linda Hikas, was retiring. I guess I interviewed well, and I was lucky enough to get the job.
This is a picture of San Anselmo, and Frank Howard Allen's office is right there. I think this would be an amazing cover, but because of our cover size, I would have to crop out Frank Howard Allen. But it shows the old train coming into the town, which is what you were going to talk
From
about.
1915.
So I think this would be an option. I would be stoked to just have this on Garo and Son's photo. I think it's awesome. This old guy is awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
Is he Hungaro or one of the Sons?
It's that, or I love these. Like here, let's pass these around.
I wish we could do a collage of some different businesses, you know.
Well,
But then you get from different eras and different colors.
yeah, and then you get, I can't
Would
get
look weird.
every single one on there. 20? I mean, so then you get 12 instead of 20, and then the 10 that aren't on. Here's what's up. We don't have all the photos yet. So I want to wait till we get all the photos, because I think, yeah, something's going to jump out at us.
That would say cornerstones, because it's not only the business, but it's got the business people in it.
People.
Yeah.
That's cute.
What if you, instead of fitting the picture in the editorial, what if we had 4 stories on one page and then 4 photos on a half page here? Would that be the best way to save space?
I think.
And then they could have a half page ad there, 4 photos, and then 4 stories.
No, because what happens when you do that is these look like ads.
One of my favorite things is the challenge of having to work with a low budget, which is definitely the Alt Weekly world. I like trying to come up with ideas for cover art that aren't going to cost us very much, which means that most of the people in the building have been models for photo shoots, including myself, and Jason, who said he would never be in a photo when he first started. I've already roped him into a few. The best was when we did a story on dumpster diving, and we got Jason outside sitting in a dumpster with one of the other designers, Brindle, and they had to pretend like they were fine dining, and then the ad trafficker was the waitress with a bottle of wine. That was really fun. I like trying to come up with kooky things that we can set up here ourselves.
My title is President Publisher of the East Bay Division, Publisher of the North Bay Division of Embarcadero Media. And we're so much more than newspapers. We have online, we have email marketing, email blasts that go out on a daily basis. All of our properties have those. As a matter of fact, the Palo Alto Weekly was the first newspaper to go online with its content back in 1992.
Are you posting? How often are you posting to Facebook?
I see it quite often.
Yeah,
Yeah, almost. Yeah. No, I mean, because I have it all connected is the thing. So like, if I do something on, Twitter, it goes to our Facebook.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's like it's going on both all the time. And then I started an account with another Foursquare. You know Foursquare? I started something with Foursquare, so that's going to Twitter, which automatically goes to our Facebook. So it all.
So it's a shortcut.
Yes.
That's
Well, yeah, because no one has That's what's so crazy is no one has time to.
right, and that's kind of the reason we hired Liz. But like I said, I can see on the back end of that. She's doing the front end. I'm seeing the back end. I'm seeing the stats. I can tell where people are coming from when they hit our website, and a lot of people are coming from Facebook. It's amazing.
Those
So-
are the stats I want to.
That's why having other people
Yeah.
post their stuff, post interaction with our site to their news feed, as opposed to just our news feed, helps us a lot. Which
Yeah.
is why Facebook Connect helps.
Okay, good. Yeah, we'll definitely have to explore that a little bit. And then the last goal is to use more video and editorial and advertising. And
We sold another one, didn't we? Didn't somebody sell another one? I think it was Linda Curry.
It's pending.
Oh, okay.
all right, excellent. And Brindle's working on the ads. We have a Cornerstones video too.
We have a
right?
Cornerstones video that's in the works. We are working on getting Cornerstones art from 20 people, which hasn't been really easy.
Which is why you keep going.
Wrangling. Well, it's like I'm having to call, email, copyright issues with all kinds of things.
So now the big question that everybody's trying to answer is, how do you make enough money online to support quality journalism? And that's the Danville experiment. That's we're testing it, and it's going to take, longer than a year. It could be 5 years before we have enough financial stability to say, okay, this property in and of itself can support itself with online advertising. And it goes back again to we don't have subscriptions. That's another interesting experiment that's going on right now, particularly with the subscriber-based newspapers. Paywalls. They charge people basically for their content online, which funds the journalism, which is a great concept, except people will not pay all the time for that quality journalism because they don't quite understand what that journalism provides as opposed to a free blog. So I think, one of the courses that I'm credentialed to teach at University of Phoenix is critical thinking. And this is something that I really impress upon the students is find out where your sources are, what your sources are. Find out who is providing that news. What is their background? What is their credibility? Is it an institution with integrity? Because we just can't keep perpetuating this. We're going to throw it at you, and you're going to take it, and you're not going to ask questions. People need to ask the questions.
There are certain things that a weekly simply cannot do that a daily can do, and that's obviously turn around a story in a single day. So what we can do that a daily cannot do is dedicate a significant amount of analysis and length to our stories. So if the Marin IJ can come out with a 200-word brief about something important because they had to meet their 5 p.m. deadline on a Monday, we can come out with a 2,000-word sort of deeper analysis, which we think will probably serve the readers far better in the long run once it's hit the racks.
I have just always felt really strongly about alternative weeklies because they're an alternative news source to the regular daily paper kind of news, and the art and music that I'm interested in usually aren't covered by the daily paper. So I've always appreciated the alt weeklies for covering that side of the entertainment industry, so to speak, which is more experimental, punk rock music, alternative music, college music, and then the artistic stuff too. So I think and of course the more liberal side of politics, very important.
All of our content is original. We've got a couple of features that, while they are original, they're also syndicated to other papers, but there's only 2 of those. The rest of it is new on a weekly basis. The IJ, I think, because of their relationship to Media News, which owns many daily papers in Northern California and around the state, they're far more likely to have a San Jose Mercury News byline or a Contra Costa Times byline in their paper, and vice versa. I think the Merc probably will have a IJ byline occasionally if it's a larger story that is of interest to South Bay. And Luckily, we don't have to do that, and we wouldn't want to do that.
There's an invisible wall that I think everybody knows about when it comes to the media. There's an invisible wall between advertising and editorial. And that wall is extremely important, and when that wall is, when that fine line is breached, a newspaper, any media organization, can lose its integrity. So that wall has to be protected, and that's actually one of my biggest duties, is to make sure that that wall is protected. Because while I need to bring in the money, I also need to protect the integrity. And one relies on the other. The advertising dollars fund editorial. Editorial, if they lose their integrity, people will not want to advertise in the newspaper. So that is one of my duties, is to kind of separate those two and make sure that they stay separated. And deal with the complaints when, you know, and people do complain. A lot of advertisers don't understand why they can't have a story. And, you know, I go through the spiel about the integrity, and, you know, it's editorial, and there are frustrations. But like I said, it's important that people, readers, understand, particularly in today's society, that there needs to be that separation of editorial and advertising, particularly now because there are so many blogs and news sources cropping up, and you need to have something with integrity, credibility to fall back on. Check your sources, because a lot of people are now looking to blogs for facts, and guess what? Those are opinions. And advertising is opinion. That's why there needs to be that separation.
The beauty of being a form of media is that the newspaper is itself a marketing tool. There's racks all over the place. We have stacks in a lot of the restaurants and coffee shops and supermarkets, libraries and bookstores. So hopefully people don't have to go too far before we're in their line of vision in some respect. Our Best of Marin is a fantastic tool for getting our name out and about. Before I worked here, I would go, when I worked at the IJ, I would go into various restaurants and businesses, and I would see a business have a plaque behind their counter that said Best of Marin 2002. Best hardware store. And I always thought to myself, that is a genius idea. I've heard our former publisher Steve told me that Pacific Sun was the first newspaper to do a best of issue. And now all the weeklies do a best of issue for very good reasons. The Sun's had a handful of writers in its past that went on to bigger and better things. And when I first started here, and I started coming across Barbara Boxer clippings from the early 70s when she covered Marin politics. That's always a fascinating snippet. And Armistead Maupin of Tales of the City, he started basically Tales of the City for the Pacific Sun. We had a San Francisco edition in 1974. And they were looking for someone who could write a little bit about city life. And they found this young writer who could do that, Armistead Maupin. It was called The Serial. And the San Francisco edition could not get the revenue to support it. So they folded it after about a year. But they loved the idea of The Serial. But Armistead Maupin lived in San Francisco and didn't know Marin. So the new one was going to have to be Marin-oriented. So he took The Serial to the Chronicle. And I think after a year or so convinced them that it was something that could work for that paper, and they had to rename it because we had already started our next serial column in Marin, and they renamed it Tales of the City, and it went on to fame and glory. Now, the Pacific Sun serial that went back to Marin didn't do so bad either. It was taken over by I think a Mill Valley housewife named Syra McFadden, and it became a word of mouth phenomenon that like I was saying, we want. And after nearly a year of weekly columns called The Serial, which was a fictionalized rendering of a Marin family trying to be on the scene, it turned into a book deal for Syra, and she left the paper to pursue a literary career, and it was even turned into a feature film, a slightly more maligned feature film than the book was. The book got great reviews, the feature film didn't. It starred Martin Mull and Tuesday Weld. I've never seen it, but I'd love for it to be available on Netflix. The paper's won a lot of awards, but we've been around for 48 years, and probably most papers that have been around for 48 years have also won some awards. But that doesn't belittle them in any way, and I think we've earned very many of them. I mean, we've earned them all. Recently, we won first place in the California Newspaper Publishers Association's contest. We won first in the state of all the weeklies that are even much larger than we are.
I'm really tired of people saying print is dead. It drives me crazy. Crazy. It's like, yes, technology has taken over in ways we maybe hadn't expected, but I think there is just nothing like holding that piece of paper, and you can still carry it to the toilet with you. Yes, you can bring your laptop too. I have friends that do that, or your cell phone. But I'm a big fan of print, and I think it is changing. Maybe it's not the same as it was, like I was saying 10, 15 years ago, but it's not dead, and it will not be dead.
I love my job. I do not think that journalism is going to go away. I would encourage people to, a lot of people say, oh, journalism's dead. No, journalism isn't dead. The vehicle by which journalism is delivered is changing and will change. Could be next year, could be 5 years, could be 10 years, but it will change. But as far as the journalism is concerned, I am very confident that it will continue and flourish because our society, our democracy is dependent upon that fourth estate.
I see the keys to the Pacific Sun's success as, first, a consistent team vision. Great in-depth community-based coverage has produced a loyal following. Next, to stay current, they have leveraged social media to ensure their information is up to date. And lastly, they continue to evolve their financial model while ensuring journalistic integrity during the media revolution. So, how has a free local newspaper been able to not just survive, but thrive for 48 years? By attracting passionate staff members who share the dream of a high-quality, investigative newspaper. I hope that this episode has given you many good ideas for increasing your business with passion.